have one of the key members of the Astros organization, hitting instructor and coordinator, Rafael Peña. We're going to talk to him about working with stars like Jeremy Pena, rising stars David Hensley, Pedro Leon, Justin Dirden, and even Jake Myers a while back with Quad Cities. So let's get into it right now and let's talk Astros baseball.
Alvarez, it's a high drive center field. Veer leans back. This game is turned upside down. There's the runner. Fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker. This time they finish the job.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive. Positive, I love having Mr. Pena here. Always Stros.
All right, so we got a special guest today, hitting instructor with in Dominican, I believe, right? We'll talk about that in a second. But Rafael Peña, he does a great job with the Astros prospects, and he's worked with a lot of people, including Jake Myers, Jeremy Pena. So where can he find you on Twitter?
Rafael Peña 07.
You know, Rafael, thank you for joining us here on the show. We really appreciate you taking your time. We know that you have just moved into the hitting coordinator position. I know you said you're a hitting instructor. And before we get into that, before we get into what you do with the Astros, there's some big news that kind of happened today with the former Astro, Eric. So where did Carlos Correa go? Is he in New York Met or where is he?
No, he's with the Giants. Oh, sorry. That was 3 weeks ago. He's with the Mets. Oh, no, that was a week ago. He's actually back with the Twins, and he signed a, $6 million, 6-year, $200 million deal to stay with the Twins. There's a vesting option that could be all the way up to $270 million for additional 4 years. I'm assuming that's the way the Twins were able to get him sign on. Like, look, if you stay healthy, we're a little bit worried about that little physical, but if you stay healthy, we'll go ahead and pay you up to $270 million. But what's crazy about this is all the money. He was going to make 13 years, $350 million with the Giants, 12 years, $315 million with the Mets. Now he's all the way down to a guaranteed 6 years, $200 million. That's only one more year and like $1.3 million more AAV than he would have got with the original 5-year, $160 million with the Houston Astros. So I'm not saying that maybe the Astros were totally off base or anything, but they kind of had the right idea on how much it would take. But I think Correa was just shooting for stars. But a lot of people were worried about that physical and that injury he suffered back in the minor leagues.
So what do you think, Mr. Pena, about this, about Carlos Correa? I know you probably come at it from a different perspective than the fans do. Teams looking into this, they have insurance policies, they have all this stuff. How does Carlos Correa go into 2023? Does he go in, he puts everything behind him, and he's good now?
I think he goes in and he puts everything behind him, man. I think from knowing Carlos, I'll tell you, I have the most respect for that guy. He's a leader for that. He was a leader for that clubhouse. He's a hard worker. He helped the young guys, and I think that's a guy that you want to have in your clubhouse and in your group. I know that it didn't go the right way for him, where he didn't get the 450, but you can tell that he's worth that money. I think just something that he cannot control is that injury that they're talking about and scaring people off. What's putting that away from him? But man, to be honest, any clubhouse will be happy to have that guy on their side, and I think he's gonna be fine. He's gonna do his thing, and hopefully that injury doesn't come back to get him. I think he's
Yeah, I
gonna be
think
fine.
that during the regular season, he is a good shortstop. He plays great defense. He's never, I mean, he's played above average shortstop during the regular season, but he always turned it up during the playoffs, and that's what a lot of people wanted him for because he turns it up during playoffs and he becomes this superstar. And so I'm not saying he's not a superstar all year round, but he just turns it up to a different level, and I think that's what teams were going after. And when they saw that there was this injury, this possible injury, if you're going to do a 13-year deal, they're like, well, he's probably going to be good for 6 years, but we can't. What's going to happen with this this repair to the injury? I don't want to say the repair or whatever, but whatever they did to his leg, what in 2013, how long will that stay healed and everything? So I think that will lead to a lot of concerns. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that that this whole thing's over. Carlos Correa needs to know where he's going to play baseball in 2023, and it's with the Twins. And I'm actually glad because remember last year he kept on saying, "I want to play with the Twins for the rest of my life." He had to go date a couple other people before coming back to Twins, but he kept his words.
Yeah, he did. And this kind of leads me into talking about here later on, we're gonna mention Jeremy Pena because you got to work with a young Jeremy Pena, and now he's turned into ALCS World Series MVP, Gold Glove winner, the first major league player to do that over their entire career, much less than one season. But before we do that, there's Jeremy Pena right there back 2018, 2019. Tell us how you got to be hitting instructor, because I know this last year you were in Sugarland.
Uh-huh.
I know you started in Quad Cities. Briefly tell the people like where you came from, how you got here, and like how did you get into the Astros organization?
So I have a different story than most people. Like I'm from the Dominican Republic. Usually when you're from there, like the way that you make it to the States, probably like you sign from Pro Bowl. But when I was 16 years old, I got in a car accident, and that kind of like took that away. So when I was older, I got the chance to come to the United States with a scholarship, and I went to JUCO. Then I graduated from a university, and I was gonna have my first daughter be born, and I went to play independent ball in Canada. And then after that happened, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the route that I'm gonna be able to take care of my family. So I think I'm gonna hang him up. And then I stopped playing. I started coaching, and I was coaching at a university. I was a hitting coach where I played before, and I got the opportunity to be the hitting coach there. And one of my best friends is the strength coach with the Astros. His name is Hasael Wesson. He's the first Dominican to make it to the big leagues as a strength coach. And Pete Potilla, who is now the GM's giant, he was in the DR, and he told him, "Hey man, I'm looking for a development coach. Do you know anybody that is Latin? We're looking for somebody Latin that is bilingual. So we're looking for somebody that can help us out in that area." So I guess I got his number. I spent like 45 minutes on the phone with Pete. We talk about hitting. He was a guy that is really into hitting. I was being always my whole life. I was like a good hitter. I love hitting, and I think that's how I got here, man. I got hired as a development coach where I coached first my first year, but they knew that I was gonna be a hitting coach, and then after that, I just been coaching every single level of the minor league with the Astros.
Because many players when they get to the point to where they can't play anymore, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. And you'll see so many stories where guys will go into the minor leagues and they'll spend 7, 8, 9, 10 years grinding. Very rarely do those long in the tooth guys make it. Woody Williams makes it like his ninth year after being in the minors that long into his 10th year. And you really had the wherewithal to go, you know what? I have a priority. I have a daughter on the way, and I know I love the game of baseball. And so for you to latch on to the Astros in the capacity you did, to go from that to now you are the hitting coordinator for the Houston Astros. Um, how much of that is just for you? Do you sit back and go, wow, this is kind of a dream job for me?
Yeah, to be honest, I think even like being in Pro Bowl was a dream job because I think like you always love to be able to help out those guys accomplish their dreams. That is to make it to the big leagues. And for the ones that don't, you want to be able to give them the best chance of them at least reaching their ceiling and being able to like help them use this game to like make them better people.
Exactly. This show today is brought to you by betonline.net. BetOnline is the number one place for you to find all your sports wagering needs, all the info you need. If you are looking for sports podcasts, they have it. Look, any amateur or pro league they have out there, BetOnline has got you covered. The NFL playoffs are here. Like, it's going to be a wild card Saturday. Go check out the lines. The Texans, what do? Well, they don't have the number one pick. And so maybe you can do a prop bet on who they get for the number two pick. Will they even have a quarterback available? Or who will the next head coach be in Houston? So there's all kinds of things you can check out. There's all kinds of games and fun stuff to do at BetOnline. You got to remember that this is a place, they have the fastest and quickest lines out there. You need to go check them out. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
All right. So, Rafael, I know that you've worked a lot of the current Astros players. I know that one of the people that a lot of people want to know about, we saw a brief little stint of him last year. He even made the playoffs, and that's David Hensley. David Hensley is supposed to be the super utility player, somebody who could maybe step into Ledmez Diaz role, play the Marwin Gonzalez type role. What did you see from him when you were working with him, and what do you think he can offer the Astros?
Well, I think that guy has a special bat. I think he has the ability to make contact, hit the ball to all fields with power. And I think he's a guy that whenever he was in college, he already played center field. He played shortstop. So I think he has the background to be able to fill that role. And I think just like you saw in the playoff, man, this kid is not scared when it comes to getting in the plate. He can get in the plate at any moment in any situation. And it's a guy that he have never pitched hit that much in his career. And like he will come off the bench in the big leagues and like give you good ABs. And that's why I think he stick around for the playoffs.
So what is it about the Astros organization that you guys do? And I'm definitely not asking for any industry secrets here, or you to take the veil off per se, but you had guys like Jake Myers storm onto the scene. And I know Jake's had a little bit of a struggle since he hurt his shoulder. You had Chas McCormick. You got Justin Dirden right now sitting down there. You got Pedro Leon, who's got pop. Hitting wise, like what is it like in the Astros organization? Is it just a focus on the individual hitter, or is it the analytics and the analysis y'all bring to the hitter that really helps them fine tune their swing?
I think, to be honest, I think it's just finding whatever works for every individual. But I think what makes it easier for us is the high standard that our big leaguers have, which that put pressure on the minor leaguers because they know that to make it on our team, they need to be great. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like the way that the big leaguers that we have put the pressure in our minor leaguers to achieve greatness. And I think like we go about it the right way. Like we try to help them from where they are individually. We use the analytics, we use technology, like we use whatever is in our power to be able to help these players develop and reach their ceiling. I think is the biggest thing.
I know we have a question in here, and somebody wants to know your opinion on. Guy Webster wants to know your opinion on the shift, the MLB banning the shift, and I know that they like to try a lot of the rules out in the minor leagues. What did you think about the pitch clock as well?
Man, to be honest, the pitch clock was something that I experienced in 2021 in the fall league, and it makes the game faster. Like I know that for the big leaguers it's gonna be more difficult. But I know for like the minor leaguers, like they were mad a little bit about the beginning, but I think they got up to par and like it makes some games finish in 2 hour and 30 minutes, maybe 3 hours. You know what I mean? So like I think it slowed the game down, but I just don't know how much it's gonna be for the big leaguers to adjust to that. And when it comes to the shift, I think for us it's just probably gonna open more holes for our left-handed hitters, and I think it's gonna be a little bit more chances for the hitters to get base hits. So I think that's something that I love. But I think at the end of the day, man, what we teach is for the guys to hit the ball in the barrel as many times as possible. So I don't think they can put them where they are, and we're gonna keep teaching the same. You gotta make good decisions. You gotta swing. You gotta swing at the right pitches. You gotta hit the ball in the barrel, and you gotta hit it in the air whenever you can.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that we noticed, I want to kind of talk about Jeremy Pena because Jeremy Pena, he came up and he was hot. He was highly touted. Jose Altuve, one of his first quotes that really hit the news wire in spring training was he's the next superstar, right? And then Carlos Correa basically christened him and said, "Hey, this kid is the next guy." Like he said, "I told Pena the year before that this is your job." And so he came with high praise and he came on strong, and then he struggled with a lot of the breaking pitches and stuff. And then when it really counted in the playoffs, he was clutch. What is it about Jeremy Pena that makes him so special? Because you saw him come out of college, you saw him go through the minor league system and to make it to the biggest stage. What again, what makes him special compared to other guys out there?
I think he's a really talented person that have a crazy heart for competing. I think that's the biggest thing I can say, man. Like that kid got drafted, and the biggest thing he got drafted because he was a defensive shortstop. And every year in the minor league, he will start like slow or something, and then he will get it going. Then he did the same thing in high A. Then he went to winter ball, with his like I coached there, probably the hardest league to hit besides the big leagues. And he went there with the same swing, and he found a way to compete. I think he's just such a good competitor that with that mindset and his talent, whatever environment you put him in, he'll find a way to figure it out. And I think that's what we got on our hands. And I think that's the biggest thing I can say about him.
Yeah, we definitely saw it in the World Series where he stepped it up. I guess in the ALCS as well, where he stepped up, became the MVP of both series, and he looks like he's a rising star. And another rising star I want to ask you about. A lot of people want to know about Pedro Leon. I know we have Chas McCormick in center field right now, but a lot of people are kind of penciling in if he struggles at any point, Pedro Leon is probably the guy, or maybe Pedro Leon has a hot spring training and he makes the team as a center fielder dash utility player since he could play some shortstop right now. What can you tell us about Pedro Leon's development so far?
Yeah, I think he have gotten better. I think like he came from not playing for 2 years and a half. He had a tough season in Double A. Like he got thrown in the fire right away. Went to the full league. But I think what I can say about Pedro is that he's a really hard worker. He's a really premier center field. I think he can run. He can make all the plays. He's just hitting is one of the things that is not natural for him. He needs to work really hard for it. You know what I mean? Like for other people like Jordan, hitting is more natural. For Leon, like he's working really hard at it and he's improving little by little. And uh I won't be scared one of these days something just clicks and he just gets going because he has power, he has speed, he hit balls really hard, and he makes enough, and he makes contact. And as he keeps making more contact, I think that's gonna be the biggest thing for him. But I see him having a good year and finding his way to the big league just because how talented he is. And I think having more experience going into AAA this year to start or like spring training with having experience before is gonna be the biggest thing. I think if he makes more contact, which is what he's been working on in Puerto Rico, being able to like learn the game too, like being able to like watch the little things that pitchers are doing, getting better counts, I think he's gonna have a good chance to help us out in the big league this year.
When you see guys like Leon with his talent swinging and missing, some people use the terms he has a hole in his swing, but some guys also think, well, maybe this guy's pressing a little too hard. I know that, and I go back to this because it was literally one of the first interviews I ever did with Josh Rojas before I even joined Locked On Astros, and he had told me a story when he was in Corpus. He had been called up to Corpus. He got real hot. Well, then he started getting real kind of fancy with his swing, trying to pull everything. And he said, in that stadium, you can't pull the ball. The wind, it doesn't matter. You just got to hit the ball. And he
Yeah.
said Reddick came down for a rehab assignment, and Reddick said, quit trying to pull the ball. Just hit the ball. Just make contact. I guess for someone like a Pedro Leon, that's the toughest part. But at the end, if he's able to figure out, sometimes those guys that have to grind it out, they're almost at an advantage because it's not natural. They have to fine tune and take care of all the details. How do you, as a coordinator, keep players from getting discouraged outside of themselves? Because you see that a lot and you hear that term, okay, they've gotten outside of their abilities. What have you done as a hitter to help that?
Man, I
I
think
mean,
you
as
just
a
gotta.
hitting coordinator,
Yeah,
sorry, to help that.
I
Yeah.
think I think as a hitting coordinator, I haven't started yet, but I think as a hitting coach, is that what I've been done with the season with guys like Leon. I think you just gotta make them understand that changes don't happen overnight, man. Like changes are you working on something for a long period of time, and then that something is gonna click. You feel like the click happened instantly, but that click is a bunch of events that you've been doing for a while that finally you get to get the feeling for and repeat it the most. So I think I won't be scared, man. I won't be surprised if Leon makes a big adjustment and with his natural abilities, man, the way that he hits the ball, he makes a little more contact, and we have a really good prospect to help us in the big league, man.
All right, so I know that we have some prospects in the Astros farm system that have some ties to the Astros system. That's Correa and Billy Wagner's kid, Will
Will
Wagner.
Wagner, yeah.
Yes, and so I know that Wagner had a great first season in the minor leagues, and Correa is still trying to make his way up. So, what can you tell us about those two?
Man, I'm gonna tell you that those two guys are really natural hitters. Like those guys, from what I've seen, like I haven't coached Wagner, and I have been around Korean spring training and see his swing and stuff like that. Now that from the coordinator position, those guys just have, especially like Wagner. I seen like great stuff from him. Like that guy have like literally great abilities to hit. That guy is. I don't have anything to say, man. That I'm excited to be able to see him in spring training for the first time playing games. I think it's a prospect that everybody should be excited about that bad in the minor leagues. And I think Correa, the biggest thing is him being able to become a catcher that can hit, because I know that they put him behind the plate and this kid can rake. He had a really tough season starting, and then after that, he got it going and he ended up having pretty good numbers at the end of the year. So I think at the end of the day, man, those two are really good guys that I'm glad to have in my organization when I'm the hitting coordinator.
Yeah,
Um,
it's I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Brett, I kind of wanted to ask him while it's on my mind. You got a chance to work a lot with Corey Lee and Yainer Diaz, right? What can you tell us about these guys? I know one of them is probably going to be the starting catcher in 2023, and one of them is likely going to be the maybe DH of the future if Alvarez plays more left field. Which one? Who do you see taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, and wins the backup job in spring training?
Hey man, that's tough. That's like telling me how which one my daughter which of my
I
daughters
know.
do I love, which of my daughters do I love the most. I don't know, man. That one I'm gonna let them figure it out. But I'm really happy that we are in the position that we have two young kids with that kind of talent being the ones fighting for that position, because those two kids are really talented kids. They both have great abilities to hit. Both of them have cannons, and both of them are really good looking athletes. So I think that'll be something fun for me to just sit down and watch during the spring training, man. I'm not gonna throw myself in the fire.
Yeah, you
You
don't
don't
want
want
to
to get
be
a phone
like, "Hey,
call.
I heard you were talking
No,
crap about me on Locked On Astros."
no, and the funny part is like I'm really close with both of them, so I'm rooting for both.
Okay.
And that's got to be tough because there is a personal element. I think it's easy for fans to get involved in it and they find their guys that they like and they find their guys that they don't like. And so naturally, they'll say, "Oh, well, this guy, he's got a better bat. This guy's got a better glove." But when you're tied to them personally, and that's what I guess could make your job tough. But with your experience and with the atmosphere that I believe the Astros bring to their minor league system with all the players and coaches that we've interviewed, everybody understands that it's a competition, but it's about the team. It's not just about me, it's about the greater good of the team. Because I know we have, Janer Diaz. He also has a younger brother that's in more of the development league. I don't know if he was in the Dominican
Yeah,
Summer
yeah.
League.
Mhm.
Him, we've got El Tanque, we've got so many. I mean, we've got a plethora of talent down there that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest things will have uh make us make us get where we are, because what people don't see is all the position players that we have traded and pitchers that we have traded to be able to get guys like Greinke, to be able to get guys like Christian Vasquez, to be able to get the guys that we trade. Those are for some of the minor leagues that people never get to know them in the big leagues because they just got traded whenever they were like in a situation where nobody knew about them.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so let me ask you this about the Dominican Summer League, okay?
Uh-huh.
How big of a role does this play? Because you have young, like really young players come in and players that join these baseball academies. How big has the Dominican Summer League and how key has it been that the Astros have a real stronghold, not only in the Dominican, but they have a strong influence in Cuba. Um, are they one of the top dogs down there amongst Latin American players just because of the way they develop these players from the different countries?
Yeah, I think that the biggest part about that is that everybody have an academy there. So everybody have their own guys and they're developing. So I think it's really important for every team to be able to have a strong foundation because I think what you want to do is you want to create a process when these guys are learning, like if it's school, like you want to make them go through a process when they're learning something to the DR, they go to the DSL and they're learning something else. So by the time they get to AAA or the big leagues, they're as close as ready to go as they can possibly be, rather than just kind of like letting them play and just expecting that when they go to AAA in the big leagues they'll be ready.
Do you have any great like coaching stories where you like worked with some one player? You don't have to say names, or if you want to say a name, but you're like they started the season, maybe they struggled, then all of a sudden through working with you, they all of a sudden developed into somebody who hit better towards the end of the season, or is there anything like funny or any funny coaching stories, that type of thing?
No, I think that always happens. You know what I mean? Like, that have happened so much, and that I don't want to point out anyone. Just but yeah, it have happened. I have had situations where like somebody, even from the front office, asked me about a guy or something. Like, hey man, like what are you guys doing with this guy? And not in a bad way, just trying to make sure that the guy is working on the right thing and getting better. What are you guys doing with this guy? I think we should go in a different direction. And I think like when you do your homework and you like know what you're trying to do and you have done enough research to understand what the players is doing and you can see what the players doing in the cage. And I was able to say like, hey man, I think we gotta stick with what we're doing, and I think everything's gonna be fine. Just trust it. Let's trust it a little bit longer. And that guy ended up like in that same week breaking his like max exhibito like 5 times in a row. Even hit him a homer off the Grom on the same week after making the adjustment that he was making. Uh, and this was in spring training, so I think it's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of hitters, speaking of these young hitters, because those are the guys you work with, tell us from your perspective how important it is and how key it is that we bring on someone like Jose Abreu, former MVP, just an absolute clutch hitter, 311, lifetime with runners in scoring position, bringing back Michael Brantley when he's healthy, to have two veterans like this in an already stacked lineup, four young hitters like Hensley, Diaz, Lee, all these guys. How does it help having someone like that around?
Hey man, Michael Bradley doesn't speak much, but that guy is great to be around. Like being in the cage session with him, just putting the ball in the tee or flipping him a ball, that guy have so much knowledge about hitting, and it's just like simple. He goes to the point. He also like mentors the young guys like Pena, Corey Lees, any young guy in spring training that he's able to cross path with. He's able to impact them, and he's just like a really wise guy when it comes to hitting, man, and a really nice person.
All right, so Michael Brantley may not say a lot, but you know who does say a lot? Robert Ford. And Robert Ford was named the one of the Texas Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sports Media Association. He joins Dallas Mavericks broadcaster Chuck Cooperstein as well. And so that's pretty cool that the Astros guy was named one of the Texas broadcasters. So, and this is his 11th season with the
Wow.
Astros. So that's pretty cool. So I wanted to bring that up before the end of the show. And also, Chas McCormick is also making good catches off the field as he went ahead and proposed to his girlfriend, who's now his fiance. And it was a cool little set up with a whole bunch of roses out there and giving people like me in the future who have to make that that setup. It's like, okay, thank you for giving high hopes for future Eric. So anyway, so just to kind of wrap this up, I really appreciate you doing this. Is there any final names you want to bring up of minor leaguers that Astros fans should know about?
Oh man, there's too many. I know there's a kid named Gaston down in the DR. I know the new guys that we drafted, looking at their swings, the Tyler Melton, Drew Gilbert, some guys that may be older but are really good, like the Scott Shrivers, the like the Corey Jokes of the world, that people just stay looking at those guys, because those guys, we have a lot of young guys coming up that are really good. So
Yeah, because we drafted Ryan Clifford, I know, out of high school, and I hear
that
there's a lot of
that's
high praise for him.
yes,
So that is a kid that I'm hearing is, him. We actually interviewed Joey Luperfido, 7th round a few years ago out of Duke, actually two seasons ago. And I hear to expect him at AAA this year. I mean, that's what the projections are for him.
yeah, he had
Well,
he had a great year. So I think that's the thing. Like, when you just made me say one name, it's like, well, one name, but then you come up with Luperfido. Then it's like Quincy Hamilton, a guy
Right.
that had a great year as well. It's just too many guys that you just want to keep creating that environment for them and see and help them reach their ceiling, and hopefully they win us, help a lot of ball games in the big leagues, either because they get traded or because they make it to the big league with us. But at the end of the day, is how many guys can we develop so we can make our big league team better and help them accomplish their dream and help their families.
and we'll definitely have to have you back to talk about some specific players, maybe once the season gets underway and we see some things from Gilbert, from Melton, from Luperfido, and these guys. Mr. Pena, tell them one more time where they can find you on social media.
They can find me on Twitter on @Rafael Peña 07 and on Instagram Peña 0717.
And you could probably find them at a ballpark because I'm sure you love baseball and you probably try to get out there to the fields as much as you can. So thank you for all you do for the young prospects out there, and continue the great work. And thank you for joining the Locked On Astros podcast. You are welcome to come anytime you want. And guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. And make sure that you go and check out the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast as well. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So just like the Locked On Astros podcast, make them your second listen every day. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And once again, thank you for listening, and go Stros. And thank you, Rafael, for joining the show.
Thank you, guys.
Go Stros.